السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. So this is part 3 of loving the Quran. I was in a college in Virginia and they had a big book for English literature. And as it had things by William Wordsworth and Walt Whitman and Robert Frost and Shakespeare and all that stuff and Tennessee Williams, then they had a part of a chapter of the Quran in the book. So the Muslims were really happy. The Quran made it. It's in the literature books now. But they don't understand the problem with that. Because they put the Quran in there on purpose, this part of this chapter, to say that the Quran is a piece of literature. That's the message they're sending. Just like you look at Shakespeare and so on, you look at a chapter of the Quran as a piece of literature. That's the first problem. The second problem, there's a concept in literature known as the death of the author. The death of the author states that it doesn't matter whoever wrote a piece, a poetry, an essay, it doesn't matter what they intended when they wrote it. What matters is what it means to you. So if I write a poem about my daughter, you will read it and you will say, no, his daughter represents the Ummah of Muhammad ﷺ, and it's still growing, and that's what he meant. I told you, no, I'm the one who wrote the poem, and I actually wrote it for my little daughter. You tell me, well, it doesn't matter what you wrote it for. What matters is what it means to me. So, how does this become dangerous? This becomes dangerous because it starts to creep into the Muslim belief. And we've met Muslims like that, who will tell you that I can read the Quran and whatever I understand, it's correct. And you'll read it and you may understand something completely different. And he will read it and understand something absolutely completely different. But it's okay. Because whatever I understand, it's what Allah is saying to me. What you understand is what Allah is saying to you. Then watch the language. Very tricky. Don't force me upon your understanding of the verse. Suddenly you're the tyrant, you're the Arab ruler who's forcing people upon, But that's not the case. First of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how does He describe His Quran? Allah Azza wa Jal says that He sent down this Quran بِلِسَانٍ عَرَبِيٍّ مُبِينٍ, sent it in a clear Arabic tongue. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the ayat of the Quran, ayatin bayyinat. In other parts of Surah An-Nur, ayatin mubayyinat. So one time He said ayat that are clear. In others, ayat that clarify issues for you. And if the Quran wasn't clear and it did not have a clear meaning and you didn't have one intended message, then it would have no value as a book of guidance. And we wouldn't be able to have a justice system, and we wouldn't be able to have laws, because then someone would go to Muslim court and the judge will sentence him to this and he will say, Your Honor, that's your interpretation of the verse. My interpretation is different. Don't force me upon you. That's nonsense. Then you wouldn't have a system of law. So these people, their claim that they're making then would remove the Quran from being a book of guidance, just like how they tell you there are as many ways to God as there are souls on earth. Whatever you understand, that's the message Allah meant for you. No, but Allah indicates that there is a specific intended meaning. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if you don't know. This verse is proof that there is an intended message. How? If you could understand the Quran in any way you want, why would you have to go ask the people of knowledge? Because there is an intended message, and the people of knowledge are the ones that will know the intended message of Allah. So if you don't know, you go ask them. That's proof that there is one intended message. And it's not open to anyone's interpretation in any way they want, and they're all correct interpretations. That's nonsense. Then it wouldn't be a good book of guidance. And I'll conclude with a da'wah benefit story. I was talking to a Christian missionary, and he tells me that, I asked him, I said, look, show me any clear, explicit verse in the Bible that says Jesus is God. He said, there are many, but you can't see them. I said, why? He said, because the Lord hasn't touched you. I said, then I will not bother with this book of yours, and no one on earth should bother with the Bible at all. He said, what do you mean? I said, because this book has no value as a book of guidance. The only way to understand it and to see the message is if God touches you. And if God touches you, the book is useless. You see the argument? So on the day of judgment, according to you, when God says, why didn't you become Christian? You say, well, God, that book you sent was useless. I could never understand it until you touched me, and you never touched me, so. That's why the Quran is a book of guidance. It has a clear intended message. It's very clear when it comes to issues of rulings and law and so on and so forth. And it's not open to anyone's interpretation. And as some speakers and people are calling for this movement now to say there can be multiple Islams. And some of them say there can be an Islam for Europe, an Islam for China, an Islam for America, an Islam for this place and that place. But there's only one Islam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, and there's only one Sirat Mustaqim. And those who say there is more than one, we challenge them, give us the plural of the word Sirat. Anyone ever heard the plural of the word Sirat? Because there isn't. It's just one. It comes singular. There's no plural form in the Arabic language for the word Sirat. No one's ever heard it. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave us a visual. He drew a long straight line in the sand and he said, هذا صراط الله المستقيم. This is the straight path that leads to Allah. Then he drew short curved lines coming out of it and he said, these are lines, these are other paths. At the head of each one is a shaitan calling people to the hellfire. So the scholar said, notice in this drawing, Siratullah al-Mustaqim was one, and it was long, which means you have to be patient upon it, and it was straight. Notice the other paths were many, and they were short, and they were curved, and they all lead to the. And if I can add one more, they also came out of a Sirat al-Mustaqim. So even people who deviate from the Ummah, they come out of the mainstream of the Ummah. The Khawarij, when they surfaced, where did they come from? They broke off from the army of Ali radiallahu anhu. Right? So deviations will be also from within the straight path here. Not from, he didn't draw branches coming out of the branches. Yeah? Anyways, these are some points. We'll continue again tomorrow with the Quran, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan for your attentive listening. Sallallahu barak ala Muhammad. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.